So we'll dedicate the shir. Remember, it's Tamara Freda Bas Elimelech, Zichron Livracha. She passed away on Erev Rosh Hashanah. So what is that? 6 weeks ago? 5 weeks ago? Shavei Elyon Neshama. Okay, what I want to do today is the following. Turn to our Gamara. I want to point out what appears to be a stira between two different Gemaras. That's what I want to do today. And then, Emir Hashem, next week I want to start the sugyot of Chazaka. That's the plan. Okay, so we're on Daf Ted Amud Aleph. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Hatabach tzarich sheyivdok b'simanim la'achar shechita. So, says Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, when a person does shechita, he has to check the simanim. Question, I think I threw this out there last week, but I want to ask it again. My question is that lechatchila? Is that b'di eved? Is that ma'akev? What do you think and why?
We said sarich. It doesn't say chayav.
Okay, so one hand he says tzarech. Maybe perhaps that's just what? Recommended, meaning lechatchila, it's okay, but the it's not okay. If you take a look, however, later on,
it's also the same. I don't know. This is kind of unrelated, but it's the same language that we did last year with Psachim Habodik Tzarich Sheyivatal.
Right. Okay. By the way, it's actually very. There's actually going to be a connection between the two. Look at that, drawing an inference from one year to the next. It's beautiful. So take a look at the Gemara, about 5 or 6 lines, ask the question, Lo badak mai. You see 5 lines down in the middle there. The line starts, Bikur tavach chacham. So Gemara then asks, Lo badak mai. Do you see that? Lo badak mai. Rav Lezer ben Trefa Vasur Bachila. So this we did this last week. The Gemara says it's a trefa, and you can't eat it. And no one seems to argue on that statement. So my question is, very strange. Why is it that the Gemara says, good morning. When the Gemara says, Tzara Sheyivdok, it appears as a very strange type of language. Now, why is it that you have to check the simanim? Why must you check the simanim? What might you say? If a person does shechita and doesn't check, to check what? So Gemara seems to say to check the simanim. But I don't understand. Can't I tell if I did the shechita? Meaning, I'm a shochet. If I did shechita, if I shechted the simanim, I would assume I did the proper shechita. Meaning, why is the Gemara bothered and wants us to make sure that we check the simanim? I'll give you an example. What happens if I do shechita at nighttime? Is that good or bad? What would you say? You'd say? It would be what? Can't see what you're doing. You'd say, oh, that must mean, if I had to make an inference from here, what would I conclude if I did shechita at night? Shechita balayla? No good. What about if a person is blind? What would you assume? No good. Turn to Daf Yud Gimel. Turn to Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis. Mishnah. Says the Gemara, so again, we want to ask a very simple question. What about a guy blind? What about at nighttime? How could it be good? Says the Mishnah, Hashochet balayla v'chein asuma sheshachat shechitasok sheira. What's going on here? The Mishnah says a guy who's blind and a guy at nighttime you do shechita. Yet our Gemara says yivdak b'simanim. If anybody would like to help us in trying to understand maybe what's going on here.
It could be a light.
What?
You could have a light.
If you're blind.
If you're blind, if a guy's blind, right.
Yeah.
So actually, what I noticed as I was flipping through waiting for you guys, I noticed that somewhere in the Biurim, a guy asked a question, what about if he uses the or the levana? Is it right? So not where are we in this time of year? Not quite. The moon's not quite full yet, right? We have a few more days to go. You can still Kiddush Levana for a couple more days.
You guys still blind.
What? Okay. Meaning no. Meaning if it's nighttime, but there's a full moon. Is that sufficient enough? I saw there's a tshuva, some of the Ribaz, he goes into the whole thing. Well, that's not. Meaning, what's the problem? A lack of light doesn't seem to bother the Mishnah. Right? Asuma, Shechita Kshera. Now, you gotta be careful. You learn a Mishnah, you gotta be careful, right? Let's read the Gemara just for a couple lines. Says the Gemara, Hashochet di'eved in lechatchila lo. So all right away, the Gemara says, wait a second. Right? So it appears this is only b'di'eved. But lechatchila what? You still shouldn't do shechita at night. Meaning, the Lashon, the Gemara wants to make a diuk that this is referring to l'chila and b'di'eved. Meaning l'chila, you still shouldn't do it. But if you did it, shechita so kshera. And that's the Gemara goes on to say. What do you mean it's l'chila b'di'eved? It appears it's l'chila. Here's a brisa. The brisa seems to imply that you can shech, doesn't matter, night or day, a boat, a rooftop, doesn't matter. Or a papa, avuka kenegdo. When are we, so Rav Papa comes on and makes the ukimta, then what are we referring to? When are you allowed to do shechita at night? L'chatchila, that's because it's talking about a avuka kenegdo. There's a torch, meaning you've recreated the daytime light. So that's what leads the tshuva. It's on the Buren. And what about when it says avuka? Is that like avuka and only an avuka? Or is it like just ain that produces a type of light? You know what I mean? That's what he means, or lavana. But I think his conclusion was, I didn't get quite to the end, that you can't do it. It's not enough light. But what about a summa? A summa, you're never able to reproduce enough light. So, now what are we going to say? Now, asuma, earlier in the Gemara, which we didn't do, the Mishnah begins, Hakol Shochtin. The Mishnah begins by saying, anyone can do shchita, including asuma. But there's be one condition that will allow asuma to do shchita. And that is, when there's someone watching him. If there's someone watching him, then we'll allow it. What would happen? By the way, based on this, let's go back to our night situation for a minute. If a guy does shechita at night, which he shouldn't do because it's only b'di'eved, our Gemara seems to say, meaning the brisa that says you can do shechita ben b'yom ben b'layla is referring to when you have a torch, but the Mishnah seems to imply that b'di'eved you use at nighttime. It's b'di'eved, it's still okay. And by the way, even a summa is b'di'eved okay, not l'chachila, but b'di'eved is still okay. So, if a person does shechita, so the question is, what then is the bedika of our simanim? Because our Gemara says in Daf Tes that what? A guy does shechita, and what happens if you don't check the simanim? It's a treif. What do you mean it's a treifa? You should have said what? B'di'eved, it should be okay, I don't understand. If I don't check the simanim, so then, all of a sudden, it's considered a treifa. Why? So here's something which is very important. The bedika that our Gemara is referring to can't refer to bedika of light versus day. Why? Because that we know is b'di'eved okay. What is the bedika that our Gemara is referring to? Could there be another type of bedika that you can do that you don't need light?
Knife.
So last week we concluded it can't be the knife because there's still shechita, still good, right? And depending when you checked it, it's a different. So, you have to ask a shochet this question. You ask a shochet, after you do shechita, how do you check simanim? So the problem is that we assume that bedika is with light, but the truth is, if you are a skilled craftsman, checking with your eyes is not going to be very helpful when it comes to rov simanim, because there's a lot of stuff in the way. Blood, guts, right? The best way to check, not the best way, but another way to check simanim is very good. It's called mishmush. So what do? That is what it means by B'dika Simanim with Mishmush. Now, take a look at Rashi. What do you Gimel for a minute? Rashi says the L'chatchila lo. Why is Rashi saying the L'chatchila lo and Daf Yud Gimel Mud Beis? Lo yishchad balayla. Why? Shema lo yishchad ruba v'hu lo yada. According to Rashi, why is it? What's the problem with nighttime? You're not getting enough if you did Rav Simanim. So then what is our Gemara referring to on Daf Tes? You didn't even do? Meaning night won't matter. But you have to explain that our Gemara on Daf Tes, according to Rashi, is referring to what type of situation? That if it's a treifa. Because you didn't do what? You didn't check with your eyes, and you also didn't check with your hands either. Whereas the Gemara on Daf Yud Gimel is referring to a case that you just didn't accomplish what? You didn't do B'dika with your eyes. But could you do it with your hands? Because this is not going well. So the entire how are you doing? So that's what it appears the Gemara is applying. So that's what we can resolve the contradiction. That's okay. That's what we can resolve the contradiction between Daf Yud Gimel and Daf Tes. So it appears that the Mishnah on Daf Yud Gimel is referring to a case where l'chatchila and b'diavad. So at nighttime, what happened? You can't check with your eyes. It's dark outside. But you can still check with your hands. But we say that's not good enough. Meaning, l'chatchila, what type of b'dika should you do? Both with sight and with hands. If you just do your hands, then b'diavad it's okay. Now, so therefore the Gemara and Daf Tes refer to a situation where you didn't do any b'dika simanim, you didn't do your hands or your eyes. If you don't do your hands or your eyes, it's a treifa. If you just rely on your hands, we don't like that l'chatchila. But the evidence it is okay. That's why you understand now. Can Asuma do shchita? Asuma can do shchita b'diavad. Why? Because what can Asuma still do? His hands. Now you understand the Gemara and Daf Yud Gimel why Asuma could do shchita b'diavad. So this was driving me crazy. How do you resolve the contradiction between the Gemaras? Because I don't understand. One says b'diavad, one says it's no good. Then so that's where you have to come on to mishmush yadayim. If you come to mishmush yadayim, then you can resolve the contradiction. Okay. Any questions so far? Yeah.
What's the b'dika that you do with your eyes?
I looked to see if the simanim are cut in half.
Okay.
Which is, by the way, not so simple. I got to clear away all the blood and the guts, and it's not so easy to do, right?
So, okay, are you using your hands and eyes in conjunction, or are you using them for separate things?
It appears, so again, lechatchila, we want to do b'dika simanim with your eyes. Mm-hmm. I can't do that at night. So mishmush yadayim is only okay b'diavad. Lechatchila, we will not rely on mishmush yadayim, according to Rashi. There'll be other achronim who are going to argue on that, but I don't know if we'll get there.
Where do you see the idea of mishmush yadayim?
Good question. So when I asked somebody this question last week, he said, "What about mishmush yadayim?" I said, I never thought of that. So he said that if you want, he said that's what he said. What he thinks is the way to resolve the contradiction is also l'nichulin. So when I asked him this question, that's what he seemed to imply. Good question though. Yeah.
No one brings it up in the back.
That's exactly right now what I was doing. I didn't see anyone who said it. No, because they quoted the Rashba. The Rashba disagrees with. Rashba disagrees. He actually, I think, even wants to argue that b'dika mishmush yadayim is no good. Here, if you take a look, the truth is actually very convenient. If those of you that have this Gemara, take a look at Daf Yud Gimel Siman Yud Tes. You see Yud Tes, like the thing on the bottom. Yud Tes. Like Os Yud Tes. A Yud Gimel Mud Beis with the Gimel. Here. So he says, L'chila, Katav Ataz, She'af Shebechol Ofen Tzarech Lidach B'Siman Chashchita Lirot Im Nishchatu Rubam Mikom balayla. Ir shal livdok miyad achar shchita. Choshishin shema yishkach v'lo yivdok la. Because what could we have said? Sorry, I didn't explain this. You could have said the following. Wait a second. Why can't I do shchita at night? I'll do shchita at night. I'll wait for the sunrise, and then I'll do beduk simanim. Meaning, why do we say don't do shchita at night? We should say do shchita at night, do bedika in the morning. Well, what's wrong with that? Meaning, if the whole problem is that I can't see, fine, I can't see, but I'll wait a couple of hours. Also, from a time perspective, it's much more efficient. I could do shchita 24 hours a day, right? Roll them out at night, and what will I do? Okay, when the sun gets, so I'll do like one guy will be shachtim, one guy will be bediking. So he says, no, we don't want to do that. Why? Shema yishkach, you'll forget. So by the way, based on that, it's only d'Rabbanan. Meaning, Mina Torah, we rely on doing shchita at night. But here's the problem. How could we rely on shchita at night based on daf test? Therefore, it has to be that there's something else that's giving you the idea that we know it's been shachted. So what's your only other option? Meaning, if you can't see at night, and you're worried you're going to forget to check, but it appears it's only b'di'eved, how could that be? Our Gemara and Daf Test says it's a treifa. So it must be that you're able to ascertain some type of information. What's the information you could ascertain? Using your hands. I guess using your hands. Obviously your hands are 90% accurate, 80% accurate, 70% accurate. I don't know the answer to that question. Right? But they're obviously not as accurate as seeing it yourself. So that's what, so then it goes on. V'af samuch laboker, and Ishchas says, what about, so what to do? By the way, I don't know if what minyan you guys went to this morning. I went to 7 o'clock minyan this morning. I woke up, I was up at 6:25. It was like pitch black, right? Zman now is very, very late. Even the early minyan that I go to in the morning, we can't daven that early. We have to wait around a little bit. So,
wake up when it's dark.
But you're supposed to. That's what fatikin. You always wake up when it's dark. It's
great. It's so easy to do on fatikin.
Yeah, fatikin now is a joke. Yeah, fatikin. What is it, Nate? 7:45 in the morning. That's not so difficult, right? The 7:30 minyan at the bite probably hits Nate. So they're not conscious of it. I never understood why. Just pay attention a little bit to the clock. But the truth is they can't daven. If they daven at 7:30, they won't hit Nate's at 7:45.
They can't get there in 15 minutes.
No, it takes them like 20. Yeah, they won't do it. Other minyanim do it, not that minyan.
This morning we did 23 minutes.
Slowest minyan.
23 minutes till after.
You daven at 6:20?
No,
6:30?
No, 8 o'clock to 23 minutes. It was crazy.
Whoa. Oh, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, Marvin Newman, yeah.
23 minutes.
I went to a minyan this morning. It was a guy at Yurtzai. It took 40 minutes to daven. It took a long time. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, why don't you do shchita at 7:30 in the morning? Then at 7:45 when the sun is up, you do bedika. So he says also, by the way, that's called, what's wrong with that? So he says the following. Why? Why? Chachamim made a gzera, don't shachta at night, lo plug. So, anyways, that's so that to me is the most easy, simple explanation of the Gemara. Simple, right? It's about mishmush. Mishmush is not ideal. It's b'di'eved. Here's the problem. I think that's a simple explanation. Because again, go through this. What is Rashi saying the whole problem is? According to Rashi, what's the whole problem? That what might you do at night? You might not do what? What did Rashi say? What's the problem? No. What does Rashi say? What's the problem if you do shacht at night? Rov simanim. Right? According to Rashi, your only problem is that you might not shacht rov simanim. Oh, how can you verify you did rov simanim? Look, I can't look. It's dark. Do mishmush? Okay, we don't rely on mishmush, but it is okay. And by the way, halachically, is there anything else that we use mishmush for and not anything else in halacha that we'll use mishmush if we can't do re'iyah? So this is what Justin was referring to. So we know that when it comes to chametz, and when it comes to chatzitza before tefillah and a mikvah, we know that mishmush is sufficient. So we know that mishmush, yadayim, feeling things and checking things, is sufficient when it comes to bedika in other areas. Like chatzitza, when you go to the mikvah, you're not allowed to have anything impeding your body coming in contact with water. The truth is, it's not just your body; it's also other certain cavities as well. But meaning you're not allowed to have any type of barriers. So, mina Torah, you just need to have less than rov, but midrabanan, any barrier, right? So, dirt, mud. Again, for men, it's not really so relevant today in the modern world, right? But for women, it's a problem. So we say, what can a woman do? She can do mishmush yadayim, and mishmush yadayim is sufficient for a bedika. And also for chametz, you can do mishmush yadayim. Therefore, what do we see from here? Mishmush yadayim is b'di eved for sure. Okay, we see it in many areas of halacha, whether it's b'dikat simanim, but here's the problem. Comes along the Rashba and says, no. Do you know what we're choshesh for? We're not choshesh for rov simanim. Just read on in the Rashba. Amar HaRashba and the Meiri. So this is the Rashba in Torah Sabayis. Shalakach asru lishchad balayla. Why? Shema yachlid v'lo yargish. So yachlid is when you cut in the wrong spot. Chalada, we discussed that 2 weeks ago. Right? You had the wrong angle, you missed it. Oh, you're not going to know. How come you're not going to know? It's dark outside. So, and then he goes on to say, Torah Sabayis HaKatzar Hosif Shechoshi Shema Yidros, and Ketav the Bach, the Fia Rashba, the Meiri, and Choshi Shema Lishcha Rav Simanim, Shlevolam Shu Bodek Behem Achar Shchita. So, anyways, so these 2 paragraphs, I just saw were literally repeated verbatim almost like 4 different times from all the Pirushim here. It's what a waste. Almost verbatim, exact same words. 4 different times. I was hoping they would expand and bring in other opinions, but they didn't. Oh well. So, to me, this is very problematic. This Rashba is very problematic. Where do you see that the problem of lo yachlid? Right? And I'll tell you why. Here's another question. Does the Gemara say it? Let me phrase it differently. If I was worried, if I wanted to teach a halacha that you have to look very carefully l'chatchila, what could I have said to have been a less of a chiddush? How could I have phrased, if I want to teach the halacha, if I want to teach this concept of, listen, make sure you can see what's going on. And even bedika by simon isn't good enough by mishmush. What could I have said instead? Well, I think very simple. You know what I could have said? Watch what you're doing. Meaning, why did it come along to this case of lo balayla or a summa? Just say, look, what about if a guy it's daytime? Thank God he can see very nicely, but he's checking his phone. He's looking up in the air when he does shechita. Is that kosher? Appears it is. It doesn't say anywhere not to. So if we're worried about Shema lo yachlid, or maybe or hadrasa, so we should say, look what you're doing. But the truth is, if good shochtim don't need to. They know what they're doing. They can feel it. They look a little bit. But they don't understand how much blood. Someone I know is a shochet, or he used to be a shochet, right? And he said, there's so much blood. You cannot, once you start a little, because they pre-cut part of it, they just get rid of the part of the skin, and they shech. There's so much going on there. So you look at time, just make sure you got your simanim afterwards. But there's most of it, especially if you want efficiency with speed, it's about, fingers, you got to know where you're going, your fingers know where they are. It's like playing a musical instrument. You can't look. It's all about feel. You have the dexterity to know the feeling and the touching, the locations. He said that's what you do when you're an expert in many of these things. It's all about touch and feel. So he said a lot of it is about touch and feel. So it's interesting how that's why this Rashba is very problematic. But Yachlid, the Yidros, because it appears that's not the problem at all. I also would have said it. But Rav Simanim is very consistent. That's the Rashi says it here. It fits with Daf Tes very nicely. So, any questions? What we said so far? We're good. It's so again, just to summarize, we do rely on according to Rashi. We do rely on sensory checking when it comes to simanim, and it's b'diavad. You shouldn't rely on it. I guess it's not as accurate as seeing it yourself, but b'diavad it would be okay, which is why at nighttime or at it's only b'diavad, and why asuma it's also only b'diavad as well. Okay. Unfortunately, it appears the halacha goes with this Rashba and his machmir that we don't rely at all on. You might even say it's not even b'diavad; it might be a problem. Why at nighttime? Because if we're worried about chalada or hadrasa, we can't verify that. There's no way to check. You can't check. Once it's been done, you don't know the location of the shechita. Maybe you started in the wrong spot. You can't tell but when the product is finished, right? You can't tell if you did hadrasa. You can't tell when it's shechted already. That's only during the act. So therefore, we're actually, according to the Shach, it's machmir, that even b'di'evet, it is no good. Which is a big chiddush. Rashi would disagree, but it appears Rashi is not brought down the halacha. Okay. Good. Let's go to... Here, let me read this to you.
If it's dark during day.
So you're right, nachinami. If it be dark during the day and you can't see, so the Gemara brings a case. What if it's a makom afela, right? What about in a dungeon? What about I don't know? Look outside today. I guess today's light. What about if it's super gray outside? So nachinami, it could be a problem. So that's here makom afela. He mentions here.
Should go to somewhere lighter.
Right, go somewhere lighter and check. Who says that? The Shach? The Taz? Here, the Taz says, Murdo lishchot bayom b'makam afel, shor yachol alechen miyad achar shchit al makam or livdok b'simanim. Amnam hashach kasav, shaf Rashi asur lasos, ken shema yamsik binyan acher v'yishkach livdok, right? That's what we're choshesh for. We're choshesh, you're going to forget to actually check properly, even when there's light. Which is, again, according to Rashi, everything's very simple. According to Rashi, it's all a matter of l'chadchila. We want you to see what you're doing. That's l'chadchila. And if you can't see what you're doing, we only rely on mishmush yadayim as a b'diavad. So why not wait until the morning? Why not go to makom that has light? The answer is shema yishkach. A guy's going to forget, or he might forget, and therefore we won't allow you to do shechita even at night or in a darkened place during the daytime because we're concerned that you'll forget to check afterwards, which I guess makes sense. Oh, I did shit off 3 hours ago. A lot of things going on. So, okay. What was that?
Then the phone to reminders.
Right, exactly. They couldn't set reminders to check simanim afterwards. So, okay. So let's go back to Daf Tes. I want to set up. Okay, let's go down, please, to this chazaka. Okay, you will recall last week, or you won't recall, but I'll tell you, that if a person does not do bedika of the simanim, the Gemara uses the language treifa. We explained last week why perhaps the Gemara used the language treifa based on a Mishnah later on that maybe in Achinami what's it called? A cut in the veshet is considered one of the simanim of a treifa. In which case, the Gemara actually says what it means. It means what it says. When it says treifa, it actually means treifa, and that's why it used such a lashon. But now I want to focus on the chazak aspect. Let's read on, and we're just going to set this up because it's already 10:40. But we'll pick this up next week. But I want to start it now. So follow along with me, please. We're back on Daf Tes. What line are we on? I don't even know. The line, you see where it says hey? Right above the hey. Amar, treifa vasura b'achila. Here we go. Masnisan tana, nevela, umetaba b'masa, b'mai kamiflagi. What do they argue over? Meaning, as we said last week, we see here that there's either, when I do shchita on an animal, and I didn't check the simanim, we have one of two options. Either we say that it's a nevela, meaning the definition of nevela is that it was died. Nevela is a, fill in the blank, an animal that died without proper shechita, right? And therefore it is, not only is it not quote unquote kosher, but it's also Mitame. There's no Isser Hana by Nevela. You can sell it to a non-Jew. Right, or give it to your dog. Right? So, if, however, the shechita was done properly, but you discover one of the simane treifa, then the animal is a treifa. And it is asur b'achila, but it is not mitame. Right? So again, you do proper shechita on an animal, but you discover that it has a blemish, i.e. one of the simani treifa, which you mentioned later on in the Mishnah, then it's not kosher, but it's not mitame. So again, from a practical 2015 perspective, it doesn't really matter. Both cases are not kosher. Tuma, tahara is not really going to matter so much today. So, but nonetheless, the Gamara is making that distinction. So what happens if a person does shechita and wasn't able to ascertain if the badika, we don't know about the simanim? According to the first opinion, it's a treifa, i.e., the shechita was done, there's a big chiddush, the shechita was done properly, but it's still not kosher, which is big chiddush, right? What was the rationale for that? Let's take a look. As a reminder, Asur B'chilav, Nizatana, Nevela B'tamas, B'maki Mifliki, here we go, the Rav Huna, the Amar, Behema, Bechayeha, Bechetzkas, Isur Omedas. That an animal, when it's alive, has a chazak of Isur. So last week we quoted Rashi. What is Rashi's chazaka? What is the chazaka of an animal when it's alive that it's not good? Because it's an animal that's alive. Why can't you eat it? What's the Isur called? Aver minachai. Tosfos is going to argue and is going to say no. It's called an eno zavuach. It hasn't been shechted properly. That will be machlokas between Rashi and Tosfos. Okay, what the nafkamina will be, we'll come across at one point in time. So, anyways, for our intents and purposes, there's a chazaka of Isser. Meaning, I can't eat it. A live animal you can't eat. So what do I need to do to remove the chazaka of Isser? What do I need to do? I have to shecht it. What if I don't know if my shechita was good? What do I revert back to? The previous status, which is becheskas Isser amedas, which Rashi says ever minachai, meaning it's cheskas Isser. So until I change the chazaka is what we're left with. Now, a live animal, is that metame or not? Is a live animal metame? No. So a live animal which is not metame is therefore there's chazaka that's tahora, but a live animal, that's the chazaka that I'm reverting back to, ain't kosher. Therefore, it's asur b'achila. Right? That's the chazaka that going back to. Again, it's a treifa. Why is it a treifa? Answer, because, again, one explanation that we said last week, because it's a treifa, because I need to find a word that's used to tell me, to define the status of an animal that's alive, but I can't eat it. In the end, we didn't like that understanding. We went with, I think, a more clear understanding is, I'll tell you why it's a treifa, because if I don't check my simanim, and one of the simani of treifa is a nick in the veshes. And therefore, I'll tell you why it's a treifa, because it could be it's a treifa. Because we can't ascertain if the veshes, the kind of the veshes, was clean. Maybe it had a nick in it. How do I know if I had a nick in it? I didn't do bedikat simanim. Maybe it had a nick in it. Therefore, I have to say it's a treifa. Okay. Until I can ascertain how it was shechted, it's chazak of Isser. However, nishcheta, once I shechted it, harehi becheskas heter. Until once I've done shechita, and by the way, the definition of shechita includes being bodek simanim, that's part of it. So I did my shechita, my knife is okay, I did the simanim. I can eat it. Until when? Until when can I eat it? Until I can ascertain that it was nitrafa. That's what Gamara says, right? Bechazkas heter is the chazak of heter. How come it's chazak of heter? My knife was good. I did shchita. I did bedika. Chazkas heter. Ad jodeh lacha v'men nitrafa. Until when? Until I discover that it was nitrafa. Marsavar b'chazkas iser kaima. The other opinion says, what do you mean? Chazkas iser kaima v'hashta mesahi. Meaning it's chazka of iser, and now it's dead. If it's dead, it's a nevela. Nevela is dead, you can't eat it. Not only can't you eat it, but it's metame. Those were the two ways. That's the machlokas. The machlokas is we revert back to chazaka, or I don't revert back to chazaka. I look right here. I see this animal. This animal's dead. Do I know how it died? Can I tell you how it died? I can't tell you how it's died. I don't know how it's died. If I don't know how it died, it's called a nevela. If I don't know how it died, it's called a nevela. It's metame b'masa. That's what the Marsa chazkas isra minan chazkas tuma lo minan. Therefore, there's no chazak of there's chazak of isra because it's dead, but I don't know chazak of tuma. I'm not reverting back to its status when it was alive. What are you talking about? I look in front of me, I see there's a dead animal. I don't go back to the chazaka that it's alive. It's dead, and therefore it is mitame b'masa. That's the machlokas between these two opinions. Okay, that we did. That was just review from last week, because now I want to get into Gufa. Here we go. Gufa. Amar Rav Huna, behema, bechayeha, becheskas, iser omedas, ad shodelecha b'ma nishchata. Wait, repeated what we said before. Nishchata, becheskas, heter omedas, ad shodelecha b'ma nitrafa. Okay. Now, here is the Gemara's question. What now is the Gemara going to need to prove? Here it is. Vilema. Ask the Gemara, right? Vilema. Nishchata hutra? Meaning, well, I ask you, what's the Gemara asking here? What are we asking here? So again, we are on Daf Tet Amud Aleph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines. You can go down to 9 lines if you want. Just look at the words. Velema nishcha hutra. Right? So again, the line begins with men nitrafa. The Gemara asks, Velema nishchata hutra. What is the Gemara asking? Look at Rashi. I'll give you a hint. Because now what we're doing is we want to question this chazaka. Right? And this is it. Because now we want to understand when can you use chazaka, when can't you use chazaka, right? This is the meat and potatoes. So what is the Gemara here asking? What are the words of Rashi? Ezra, read Rashi. V'neima nishchata hutra. To Lashon?
Lashon chazaka lo shayach el b'davar safek d'neima ha'omed davar al chazkato.
What's Rashi saying? Or what does he seem to be saying?
There's no, you can't say it reverts back to its original chazaka because you know it's dead now. It's not a suffix whether or not it's dead.
What do you mean? Rashi says I don't understand. When do we use the word chazaka?
We're not sure.
We're not sure. Okay, that's me very important. The word chazaka is only used when you have a doubt. Meaning, I have a doubt. What do I do if I have a doubt? I revert to chazaka. Right? If I don't have a doubt, then, if I have no suffix, so if I have no suffix, I don't go to chazaka. What do I use? How do I know things? Based on what I see. Right? If I have something which is a vadai, if I have something which is a gift, I don't refer back to chazaka. So the Gemara here is asking something which is very interesting. That if we use a lashon of chazaka only when there is a suffix. So, what's the suffix here? What do you mean the suffix? Again, because if it was shechted, then what? Then it's kosher. And if it's not shechted, then it's... So what is the suffix according to Rav Huna?
Clearly you have to actually check, otherwise checking is part of shechita.
So yes, checking for sure is part of the shechita.
Therefore, it's suffix to do the whole shechita.
So again, so that if I did the whole suffix, if I actually did the proper, if I actually did proper shechita, then it should be 100% fine. If I didn't do proper shechita, then it's not good. So then what's the suffix according to Rav Huna? Rashi says there has to be a suffix here. Why? Because you only need to go according to Chazaka when there's a suffix. So where's the suffix? In my shechita? In my bedik of the simanim? So look at the commentary, Ot Lamed, on this Rashi. See Lamed? Rashi. So again, look at the commentary of the Sefer. We have it, might as well use it, right? So he basically quotes Rashi, Hare lashon chazaka shach rak b'davar sheish bo safek lomar shavadim oto al chizkato achkan. That second column, she'ein safek b'kshiruta shel behema hayala Rav Huna lomar shekevan shenishchata hutra lachila. Meaning, if it was shachted, it's mutar to eat. So what's the suffix? Look at Lamed. Rashi. Hiksha apnei Yoshua. Shelefi svarat hamakshan. Right? What's a makshan asking? Shirav Huna diber ba'ofen she'ein shum safek b'kashrut behema. Meaning, the Gemara says what? That if it's nishcheta, then what? Then it's okay to eat. But I don't understand. Where's the suffix? The suffix is in the shechita. Right? So the suffix is in how was the shechita done properly or not. So why is the Gemara then saying nishchata? Then it's kosher to eat. What type of question is that? Right? Obviously, Mr. Ever Minacha, Mr. Eina Zavucha, Shehuzaka Behem B'Chayah. Umode hutrach lomar zot v'terutz sheish chidush lomar shehutra b'mikra shenevda hara'iyah ulam lashon chazaka ino shayach kevan shein kan safek. So again, what the Gemara seems to be implying, right, that the bedika of the simanim is part of the shechita, and if bedika of the simanim is part of shechita, and I can't do bedika simanim, then what Shlomo was referring to, that is exactly perhaps the suffix that's going on here. I can't ascertain, was this shechita done properly or not. If I could ascertain shechita was done properly, then it's shechita so, kshera. And until I can find a sign that it's a treifa, then we're going to say it's kosher. So it appears then that what is the suffix? The suffix is very simply, I don't know if the shechita was done properly. What do you mean? Why not? Because I didn't do bedika simanim. Now the Gemara is going to give a wacko case of what the problem is going to be. Right? A wacko case of what the problem is going to be. Homework, because it's 5 to 11. What I want to do, please, for next week, is read the second paragraph, because I think it'll help us, because the Gemara is going to create a reuta. Right? What is bothering the Gemara? Right? So the Gemara is going to come up with a situation that's going to cause a problem with the chazaka. And the Gemara is going to have to concoct a very 1 in a million case, but that will be the reyuta that it's referring to. Okay? So the next, 4 lines? Okay. Ha kamashmalan. So you see the Gemara then brings a kamashmalan? So look at this kamashmalan, right? There's a reyuta. Read over the next, 4 or 5 lines. That's the root of the Gemara, and I think that's what we're going to deal with next week. And then we're going to continue with other types of chazakas in the future to help us create a beautiful mataraj. Trying to understand when you use chazaka, when you can't use chazaka, when you can be mamid devar chazkato. I think by the end we'll have a bit of a clearer understanding, because people like to throw out the word chazaka a lot. The question is, what really is a chazaka? What is it? What isn't it? When can you use it? When you can't use it? That hopefully will be our goal.
You just got to sit in the field for 3 years.
Right. So there's very different. Not all chazakas are created equally, as you shall see.